Good morning, friends. Uh, Today, I am going to talk about Ernest Hemingway and his most important novel, novella, The Old Man and the Sea. Ernest Hemingway happens to occupy a very significant status as far as American fiction writing tradition is concerned. Hemingway has been very popular, and it would be no wonder at all to think of Hemingway as one of the most inspiring novelists ever. And I think the text which is prescribed to us, that is, The Old Man and the Sea, happens to fulfill this very statement whereby Hemingway proves himself to be a great mentor, leader, above all, an inspiration in itself. Hemingway, in that context, has been, as I said, one of the greatest novelists ever. He was lovingly addressed as Papa, and he was born on July 21st, 1899. This very year is significant, at least in one significant way. This year, that is 1899, is the year of the publication of one of the most seminal books of 20th century. I am talking about Arthur Symons and his book, The Symbolist Movement in Literature. I am saying this because Hemingway, Hemingway and his craftsmanship heavily employs symbols, symbolical statements, symbolical events, symbolical characters, and I think this year 1899 should be considered not as the birth year of the great Hemingway, but also as the birth year of the one of the greatest books ever written for the cause of literature, that is, the symbolist movement in literature. So, he was born in a small town, that is Oak Park, Illinois. He has been deeply influenced by his father, especially his adventures of fishing and hunting. And this can clearly be seen in the novelist Hemingway. He also is influenced by his mother being a homemaker, and being homemaker, she could know the artistry. She could evolve that artistic sensibility to make her home decorated. Now, as far as his childhood is concerned, he also spent his childhood in the company of deadly weapons, of violence and war. And when he was growing up, he had to participate in World War First, and he participated in that as honorary lieutenant in famous organization Red Cross. And at the time he was in Italy serving the wounded, tired, mutilated soldiers. As I told, Hemingway has developed a kind of love towards uh, fishing and hunting, which he uh, derived from his father. So, this fishing and hunting should be taken as a kind of backbone to begin with our basic understanding of the novel The Old Man and the Sea. As far as his important writings are concerned, to his credit, we have several novels like The Sun Also Rises, A Farewell to Arms, For Whom the Bell Tolls, To Have and Have Not, the Nick Adams stories. Apart from these prominent novels, fictions, he also has the credit to write numerous short stories. And for his total contribution to the cause of literature, and especially the greatest ever, The Old Man and the Sea, he was conferred Nobel Prize in the year 1954. The Old Man and the Sea was published in the year 1952. He published this small novella in one of his most turbulent times. It was reported that Hemingway was losing his power to write, to compose, to create. It was reported that he had lost his power to create fiction. In many ways, The Old Man and the Sea, as I told in the beginning, a literary piece of several symbolical manifestations. So I shall be talking about symbolical affiliations, associations, readings, and I shall be talking about symbols in this text. But before that, it is but necessary to point out a very important article which was published in 1936 in the magazine Esquire. And this article was entitled On the Blue Water. It has been taken as an important precursor to the text The Old Man and the Sea. At the same time, one must also remember another important article, story On the Blue Sea, which talks about the pleasures and the adventures of deep sea fishing on Cuban coast. So these two important small pieces have been considered as important precursor to the master text The Old Man and the Sea. The Old Man and the Sea is a great work of art, and it would not be any kind of exaggeration when I say that it is greatest of Ernest Hemingway, the best of Ernest Hemingway. The novel is deceptively simple. Novella, in fact, most of you would be thinking that I am using the two terms novel and novella interchangeably. So let me make it clear that novella is distinct from a novel, whereby a novel has a large canvas, many characters, many incidents, many themes, many subplots, whereas a novella is smaller but little bigger than a short story. Novella consists of one important main plot, where that main plot is explicated and written about in a great amount of depth and insight. We have less characters, we have less subplots, rather no subplots at all, one major story, and that the story is written, talked about in a great amount of expertise and dexterity, which we shall be seeing in the novella, The Old Man and the Sea. The Old Man and the Sea, the story, as I said, very simple. It is about an old man, the name is Santiago, who is old enough. He is a fisherman, and he has been, once upon a time when he was young, he could boast himself of catching so many fishes. Now the great fisherman, but when he is growing old, he is not in that position to catch fishes, rather any fish. And this has been continued to 84 days. And 84 days without a fish has been termed as Salao. Salao. That is the worst form of unlucky man. The old man happens to be that, a Salao. As he is a fisherman, and as a novella's title itself suggests, sea, the old man and the sea. So I consider the sea itself as one of the most important characters, though symbolically conceived, which I will talk later. Manolin the boy. Manolin is a small boy who has been with the old man Santiago, pursuing his apprenticeship. He's learning how to catch fish. And in due course of time, he develops a good amount of bond, emotional bond with the old man. And this bond is, as I said, intense. And the intensity can be gauged by the fact that when the old man was unable to catch a single fish for 84 days. When everybody deserted him, Madeline was there with him. The marlin. The marlin is 18 feet long fish, which happens to be another most important character in the novella. We have some imaginary characters, especially Joe DiMaggio, who has been one of the great American baseball players, lions as well, and the old man often dreams of the lions of South Africa. Apart from these, we have certain minor characters, and Pettico and Martin are some of them. As I said, the story is simple, and I would like to discuss themes of the novella along with the story. Struggle, defeat, and death. Basic component of life. As I told, Santiago, a fisherman, but he has grown old. He doesn't possess that much of power, capacity, as he was possessing once upon a time when he was young. But he has to survive. Though he is old, apparently he is powerless, his wrinkles are visible, but his eyes are still blue. His eyes are young. And as an old man, he doesn't have to accept oldness, the curse of being old. He doesn't have to be inactive. He doesn't have to resign. He doesn't have to withdraw his active participation in life's affairs. Rather, being a man, being a human being, he has to struggle. He has to keep on his workings. He has to do his karma, Bhagavad Gita's karma. Though he has been unsuccessful for 7 days, maybe 87 days, but he is not withdrawing from his karma, from his karma. He has to do his karma, the karma of fishing, the karma of catching fishes. This is what he is made for, and this is what he has to do. Struggle. He decides to go for fishing, and he goes. He catches a big fish, 18-foot fish, longer than the boat in which he is traveling. He catches the fish, but he is attacked by the sharks, deadly sharks, lethal sharks. And as you know, if you read the novella, due to the attacks of sharks, there is no flesh left in the fish marlin. Fleshless fish, though 18 feet long, yet fleshless. And when, after 3 days of struggle, He comes back to the show. What is left in the Merlin? Only a tail and a huge skeleton. Apparently, it's a defeat. But that is not defeat at all. At least he did his karma. He did his duty. He carried out his responsibility of participation in the life. And at this juncture, it is but necessary to talk about the sea as a symbol of life. With lots of webs, opposing webs, enemies, critics, opponents, foes like sharks, which are there in plenty in the outside life. But one has to work. One has to take active participation in life. One doesn't have to be afraid of either sharks or critics or enemies or foes or any kind of identity which is not congenial to his health. Struggle. You may be defeated, you may face defeat. But do the karma. Don't think about fruit, fall, result, consequence, prize, award, reward. Struggle. Don't think of death. We often talk about death as undesired, unwanted part of life. But being an old man, he is not waiting for his death to come. Silently waiting for the death, waiting to die. Death is not the end of life. Death is the part of life. One has to accept it. One doesn't have to confront death. One has to confront life. Death is inevitable. It has to come and it will come. And you can't resist it. Nobody can resist death. So struggle, defeat and death. And one of the most important messages of this novella is one must work hard. One must strive to achieve something in terms of goals and objectives. It's quite possible that in the pursuit of that goal and objective, one may be defeated. One may be crushed. But a spirit never gets defeated. A spirit is more important. He's an old man. Is he spiritless? No. He's more spirited than us. He goes all alone in the deep sea to fish. He can't handle that big fish, Merlin. He can't handle the attacks of the sharks. Yet, did he refrain from doing his job? The answer is no. One can be defeated, destroyed, distracted, but one's spirit cannot be. This novella also talks about man's oneness with nature. How? This universe is a ecosystem. The interdependency of man with the nature and nature with man. How? The old man has to go to the sea. He has to face the wrath of the sea in terms of its waves. But they are the part of the life. Life can't be without hurdles. Life can't be without obstacles, hindrances. Man's oneness with nature can also be exemplified in the light of Merlin. The old man, Santiago, doesn't consider Merlin as his enemy, opponent, a foe to be controlled, to be defeated. He calls Merlin as his brother. This is an important aspect. As a brother, Merlin also seems to help the old man. And when Merlin gets into his small boat, there is no resistance from the fish's side. It accepts the company of the old man. The fish knows that this is the part of life, this is the part of nature. What will man eat if not the fish? Man's oneness with nature. Pride leading to glory. Old man, bones have become weak, but the spirit is not. The old man often remembers of whom? DiMaggio, his favorite baseball players. And the moment he remembers DiMaggio, he nourishes himself. He gets some power with the help of the imagination. He often dreams of lions of South Africa. DiMaggio and lions do provide him the energy, the inspiration to live the life as it should be lived without being disturbed by the wrinkles and the kind of vulnerability which approaches a human being due to oldness. Pride leading to glory. Pride of being a human being. A human being is the name. Famous Hindi poet Maithili Sharangupt and his poem न रहो निराश करो मन को, कुछ काम करो कुछ धाम करो. There is no need to be pessimistic. Problems are there. Everybody will become old, not an issue. Accept it. Acceptance is the key. Struggling is the acceptance. Facing defeat is the acceptance. Death is the acceptance. Nature is acceptance. Everything is kind of acceptance. So when the old man comes back to the shore with the 18 feet long, without a flesh, merely a tail and a huge skeleton, did he receive criticism, hate, abhorrence, repugnance? No. Instead, he received love, respect, honor. Oh my God, the old man. Because the old man has never seen such a big fish. The old man has never caught such a big fish. And this, in turn, yields lots of affection, lots of love, veneration, which leads him to further glory. Youthfulness. Who's young? We often think about youth in terms of youth. Those who are 30 years old, 35 years old, 25 years old, but not beyond maybe 40 or 45 or 50 years old. I have in the beginning talked about the importance of the spirit, the importance of the fighting spirit. That is the determiner of the youthfulness. Oldness is not. Wrinkles are not. Weaker bones are not the symbols of youthfulness. Rather, is spirit. Rather, the power to participate in life, the power to struggle, the power to accept defeat, the power to accept death is youthfulness, which is being explicated, symbolized by the character Santiago. The novella is replete with symbols, and almost every character, every incident, every situation has symbolical affiliations. I've been talking about the old man and the sea in terms of symbols. Let us talk about some more characters in terms of symbols. The Merlin. They told you before the publication of this novella, Hemingway has to suffer a lot. He was criticized bitterly for the loss of the artistic sensibilities in fact. The magical touch was lost reportedly. The old man, in that way, is nobody but Hemingway himself. Hemingway has to struggle in the sea of life. He has to achieve something great, big, which can shut the mouth of the criticizers, critics. He must have worked hard. Hemingway. The Merlin should be taken as a kind of prize, a kind of trophy, a kind of artistic achievement, a kind of winning in symbolical affiliations, which the old man wins. The Merlin. Where does he win that? In the sea. And the sea, the symbol of life. Life is deep. Life is full of webs, full of deadly animals, like sharks. And sharks can be taken as critics who criticized the old man, Hemingway, for not writing something, for not achieving something. As the fishermen of the coast are cursing and blaming the old man for not catching a single fish for 84 to 87 days. Symbols, Merlin. Already I have talked about Merlin as the exemplification of man's oneness with nature. The sea is there. I've already spoken about lions, the sharks, Damasio. These are some important symbolical aspects of the novella, the old man and the sea. The novella also contains plenty of Christian symbolism. The Christian symbolism to begin with, the old man himself. The old man is doing his job. He's spreading love, affection. He's having no enemies at all. He's busy in catching the fish, despite all the odds, despite all the problems, despite all the hurdles. And it has been similar to the life of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ too spread the message of love and affection. But did he spread that easily, smoothly? The answer is no. He had to suffer a lot. He received several oppositions, several enemies, several failures. Then only he could be successful in propagating, disseminating the messages. Agape, love, sympathy, empathy, mercy, justice, humanity. And these aspects can easily be seen, can perspicuously be seen in the character of the old man, Santiago. The old man is, which I said, interestless, desireless, in the sense that he's not expecting for the fruits, result, fall. He's more interested in doing his job. He's more interested in doing his role, performing his role as a fisherman. The same is the case of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ didn't set a goal or an objective. He selflessly preached and practiced too the values, the Christian values, helping others. The old man not only helps Madeline, which turns out to be a classical example of the relationship of the mentor and disciple, the guru and the chela, the guide and the student. Selflessly, lovingly, affectionately, he's training, he's helping Madeline the art of catching fish. Though people are suspecting him of his abilities, but Madeline is not at all suspecting. He's quite sure of the success of his guru, his mentor, his guide, the old man, Santiago. As Christ went for chosen few, the old man also goes for chosen few, chosen some, chosen one. Madeline in that way. He does venture of getting into deep sea, catching the biggest fish of his lifetime, struggling despite all the odds, problems, hindrances, and obstacles. And the way he handles the mast, he puts on the mast on his shoulders time and again. He tries to handle the mast, he falls down. He again rises up, again tries to handle the mast on his shoulders, he again falls down. His hand is cut, blood is coming out. And when he comes back to the shore with the mast on his shoulders, when he falls down, he looks like Christ's figure. Christ in the process of crucifixion. But the crucifixion only could make other realize the importance of Christ, the importance of the message which he delivered. And the same can be applied to the life of the old man, Santiago. Like a Christ figure, he receives respects, veneration, love, affection, and finally accepts life as it is. Life is all about acceptance. This novella has been hailed as an artistic success too. The dialogues, the images, and the pointedness towards the thematic concern must be appreciated. Hemingway has been hailed for his craftsmanship, and The Old Man and the Sea is a classic example of that. The felicity of the words, at the same time, the complexity of the words, saying maximum thing in minimum words. As we talk about one of the greatest Hindi poets, Bihari, and his very famous appreciation, Gagar Mein Sagar. We are talking about an old man in the Sagar, Gagar Mein Sagar. His depth, his dexterity, his artistic excellence in conveying the message with utter felicity and utter simplicity must really be applauded and appreciated. I hope you must have been in a position to understand the major concerns of the novelist and the novel The Old Man and the Sea. I think for the right now, this is do not enough, but it will simply help my students to make a better understanding of the man and the creation, Hemingway and The Old Man and the Sea. Thank you.